Welcome to The Source, where we combine the headlines with in-depth conversations with the newsmakers themselves. Today on the program, the president seriously considering cutting ties with Iceland.
Ang isang bansa ay nagpapahayag ng mga posisyon na makakasira sa ating kasarinlan o sovereignty, kailangan talagang putulin natin ang relasyon natin sa kanila.
Following a United Nations resolution seeking to probe the country's human rights situation.
Ano ang problema ng Iceland? Ice lang. That's your problem. You have too much ice.
The government rejects the United Nations Human Rights Council move.
We've been having trade relations with other countries. So I don't think cutting a relationship with one country would affect us.
Defending that the country's justice system is working.
They don't understand the social, economic, political problems of the Philippines.
Human Rights Commissioner Gwen Pimentel-Gana joins us live. Thank you for joining us. I'm Pinky Webb. Malacanang says cutting ties with Iceland won't have any major impact on the country following the president's statement that he is, quote, seriously considering the move. Iceland filed a resolution before the United Nations Human Rights Council calling for a probe into the Philippines' human rights situation. Foreign Affairs Secretary Teddy Boy Locsin, on the other hand, said that the country will not cut ties with any nation over a UN Council resolution. Malacanang, on the other hand, said that the president's decision isn't final. Let's go straight to the source of this story. We have Human Rights Commissioner Gwen Pimentel-Gana. Commissioner, good to have you. Welcome to the show.
Good morning, Pinky.
Good morning.
And to your viewers. Yes.
Okay, so the UN Council adopting a resolution coming from Iceland, wanting to look into the human rights situation in the country. Does the Commission on Human Rights see this as a positive development or a negative one?
Oh, we welcome, of course, this resolution, and we're very glad that at least a number of countries have said that it's about time that we look into the situation of the Philippines when it comes to the human rights aspect. So we're welcoming this resolution.
The Commission on Human Rights is welcoming the resolution, but government is not welcoming these decisions. That's an opposite stand on what the Commission on Human Rights is actually considering.
Yes, this is not a negative thing. As a matter of fact, I think it is good for government because it will allow them to present or say their side, what's happening really in accordance to how they think things are going in the human rights aspect. So this is an opportunity for them, actually. So they should welcome it.
Is this actually basically saying that there is human rights abuses in the country, or is it just saying, let's look into these reports of possible human rights in the Philippines?
Actually, that's a good point. You know, the resolution says come up with a report on the situation of human rights in the Philippines. So it's actually, they keep on using the word allege, you know, and that's a good thing because it means that it's it can work both ways. They can be a positive recommendation, and they're saying that there's nothing there, or they can say that, hey, you better improve how you treat the human rights defenders, or these things, you should stop extrajudicial killings.
Yeah, or the victims of possible human rights. So what do you think about government rejecting this? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I believe that they should not have done it in the first place. You know, government should be open. You're part of a body politic. You know, you're part of a universal organization. And actually, you voluntarily joined, you know, the United Nations, and you were actually elected to the Human Rights Council. Mm-hmm. So in other words, you follow standards, universal standards on human rights precepts and principles. So why now?
Because they're saying that it's one-sided, it's maliciously partisan. Those were the words of the spokesperson, Secretary Salpanelo. He says the resolution is one-sided, it's narrow, it's partisan, it's, it reeks of nauseating politics.
But there was a vote you know, and then it was presented to the body. And I think this is, again, as I said, an opportunity for government to show their side, to present their side.
How about when they say, Commissioner, that this just shows disrespect to our sovereignty? What do you think of that? Because we have a justice system working. We have the justice system working here in the country. We even have the Commission on Human Rights, which I'm going to go there later. So is this an attack to a disrespect to the country's sovereignty?
It does not diminish our sovereignty, to my mind, at all. Because in the end, this is just a recommendation, you know, and it's, in the end, it's still the Philippine government who will decide what are we going to do with these recommendations or these findings. And I think, as again I said, this is an opportunity to be upfront with the world. What's happening to our country?
But what if they counter, ma'am, that this is based on false information?
Then again, let's counter. Then show us the true facts. What's the truth here? Okay, if you're holding something that the world should know, then go show the world that these are what is reality. You know, it can always be proven.
Otherwise. So
yes.
that was actually what presidential spokesperson Sal Panelo was saying, that this Iceland could have probably been fed the wrong information. Let's listen to what Secretary Panelo said.
Until now, he's in wonderment why Iceland is doing that. He can only speculate, or the two of us can only speculate that maybe some activist, either from this country or elsewhere, are feeding Iceland with the wrong information. We've been having trade relations with other countries, so I don't think cutting a relationship with one country would affect us.
Is that a point really to look into? I know you're saying that if Iceland was fed the wrong information, here's an opportunity for the Philippines to correct that information. But if the premise is wrong, according to Secretary Sal Panelo, kung gagaling sa mali yung impormasyon, then they can call it reeks of politics, number one. They were given the wrong information, so we reject this Human Rights Council resolution, adopting that resolution by Iceland, rather.
Di ba, Pinky, the world is so small because of the, you know, internet and all these things. Information can come from different sources, di ba? And I don't think that the Iceland would just, you know, come up with a resolution without any basis at all, no? And I think it's about time that government should be yun ang problema din eh, because they don't want to come up with, cooperate, actually, as you were talking to me earlier, with the Commission on Human Rights, for one.
Yeah.
You know, we've been asking for the records of cases that they said they're in their custody. They have a roster of of cases that they're investigating. Why don't you share it with us so that, you know, CHR as an independent body can actually come up with a very credible statement on the state of human rights in the Philippines?
You talked about the vote a while ago. You brought that up, that a majority of the states wanted to adopt the Iceland resolution looking into the human rights situation in the country. But Malacanang also questions this vote because you have 18 who voted for the resolution, 14 who actually rejected this resolution, and there was an abstention of 15 countries. By the way, of course, the Philippines is part of the 14 that voted no. Sabi nila, this is really not, even if you look at the numbers, lamang ang 18 sa 14, to some that is not a simple majority, because a simple majority of 47 member nations should be about 24.
A plurality of votes. You know, there were 18 nations who sided with Iceland. And I think that's sufficient enough to say that there has been a statement. I mean, if those countries that abstained would have actually, you know, voted no or yes, then that would have been a different matter.
Yeah, but they didn't. What does it say about the countries who abstained? I guess, of course, various reasons, and we can only speculate.
Yes, I don't want to speculate for now.
All right, you talked about the Commission on Human Rights. The Commission on Human Rights, obviously, as its name suggests, is to protect the rights of an individual. Yeah. However, the CHR is sometimes, or oftentimes, being questioned on your mandate, because it's as if the CHR is only protecting or going against law enforcers. So again, let's talk about the mandate of the CHR and how you come into play in this whole resolution adopted.
Yes, you're right. You know, we are here to protect the human rights of every body in the Philippines, no, even foreigners and all. But
Even suspects.
Yes, even suspects.
Victims.
Yes.
Even law enforcement individuals.
But we are not first responders, okay? What we are basically a watchdog of government. You know, in human rights parlance, we have duty bearers and rights holders. Duty bearers are government agencies, government officials, while rights bearers are actually us, citizens, no? So we are the watchdog. If a government agency does not do what it's supposed to do in accordance to their mandate, then we call their attention. We make recommendations to make them deliver services better for our constituents. So that's what we do, taking care. So sometimes they say, bakit ba pulis lang pinag-iinitan nyo? Because
Madalas
the police,
ganon.
bakit
Ganon ang
ganon?
sinasabi sa CHR.
Ang police kasi, duty bearers sila. And they have to protect and serve the people. And even if you're a suspect, di ba pag hinuli ka ng police, nandun ka sa custody, hindi mo expected mamamatay ka. Ang expectation mo, idadalhin ka sa hustisya, sa process, the justice system, o lilitisin ka, hindi ka mamamatay. So in other words, kung meron nangyari na namatay ka habang nasa kustodiya ka ng police, then we have to look into that situation.
Because the possible violation of a human right. A human right is possibly violated.
Yes, while they were still in the custody of that particular police.
So the question really is now, is the Commission on Human Rights doing its job here in the country? Hence, are they? Because there's a need now for an international body to look into the human rights situation in the country. We'll talk about that after the break. This is The Source on CNN Philippines. Please stay tuned. You're watching The Source on CNN Philippines. Our guest today, Human Rights Commissioner Gwen Pimentel-Gana. So you are mandated to look into the human rights situation in the country. And then here you have the United Nations Human Rights Council adopting a resolution saying we need to look into the human rights situation in the Philippines. Does that mean you're not doing your job?
No, I don't think so. It's just a matter of perception, you know, that maybe government is giving to an international community that, hey, you're not doing your job. Doesn't mean that the CHR is not. As a matter of fact, we've been engaging with the duty bearers, particularly example PNP, when it comes to the drug war. So we've been asking them for records. We've been saying that, why don't you share with us what you have in your roster, in the investigations that you've been conducting? And they've been saying that, oh, we've, persecuted these policemen, etc., etc. So give us the records. And so far they have not. They've told us, yes, we will. And some responses, they did give us some records, but it's not the records that we wanted.
So no cooperation. Would you describe it as, how would you describe your relationship with the PNP in terms of trying to get records with murders or homicides or deaths under investigation, or now they call it homicide under investigation?
I would want to describe it as the engagement with them. There's still openness there, no? They're willing to cooperate, but to a certain extent in accordance to what they think they can give, you know? Yeah. But it's not a full cooperation.
So would it be right to say they only give what they want to give? Do they withhold information from the CHR?
They do. They do withhold information because if they were really sincere and transparent in their relationship and wanting to cooperate with the CHR, they should have done long time ago, gave us what we requested.
When was the last time the Commission asked for data from the PNP? When was your last possible coordination?
Recently, we did write to PNP Albayalde, Chief Albayalde. That would be around, if I'm not mistaken, a month or so ago.
And
we
again,
have not
asking for what?
Yes, again, the records that actually what
records are you asking for?
The case files of those cases where they said nanlaban. So we wanted those case files, okay? So we said, you said, give us the status of those cases because they said they're investigating. And what have you done? And where are these people now?
Yeah.
You know? So all these things that we need to find out.
How does that make your job more challenging if you're not getting these case files from the PNP? How do you go about your job then?
We have, of course, other sources. We work closely with the civil society organizations. We have our own investigation department. We have our own lawyers. So we do go out on the field and talk to the victims,
And are they,
the families of the victims.
and they are accepting of the CHR speaking to them, the victims' families?
Yes, they are.
So let's go back to the Iceland resolution, Commissioner. Have they, because if we're talking about possibly, let's work on that premise because Malacanang is saying that Iceland was given the wrong information. Would you have any idea, number one, where they get their information? And number two, have they contacted the Commission on Human Rights?
Well, on number 2, they have not contacted the Commission on Human Rights. On number 1, I guess, you know, civil society have actually reported a lot of things already in terms of what's happening in the Philippines. And of course, we know the web is, out there. So I'm sure they have a lot of sources.
So it's the methodology by which this will happen, from my understanding, Commissioner, is that the body that will conduct the probe is the UN High Commissioner. Is that correct?
Yes.
So it's the UN High Commissioner, and what it said was that there are going to be about missions coming to the Philippines, which have 10 working days each, and there are 3 missions. Can you tell us what you know about this?
Well, from the documents that I read,
if they are allowed to enter the
if they're
country.
allowed to enter, because it also happened in Venezuela last year, so they did the same thing, you know, they conducted an investigation. So, I mean, yes, to gather information for the report that they submitted. So, there's supposed to be country visits.
Yeah.
But, of course, that remains to be seen whether they'll be allowed to. But they can also conduct interviews, and submissions can be given to them. So, they need not be in this country. They can be based still in Geneva or in
Isn't
Bangkok.
there one in Bangkok? Yeah.
Yes, in Bangkok. And they can also call witnesses to go to them. It's not like they're just, you know, they have to come and visit.
But it would just make it a little bit more, I guess, would it be correct to say, difficult if they can't enter the Philippines? And there are other avenues and modes that they can look into and undertake.
Yes, definitely. And it would be good also for them to be able to engage with government officials.
Yeah.
Don't you think it's better? I mean, to hear it from, the horse's mouth, if ever, you know.
But to hear it from whom? Who would be the perfect people to speak to? The PNP chief,
Yes,
the
for
Justice
one,
Secretary?
The PIDEA, the Justice Secretary, maybe, and then maybe the spokesperson if he really wants to be involved in it.
Kasi, paano ho ba yun? Kasi there's always a conflicting, it depends who you speak to, they're conflicting, or a number of numbers that are coming out. You have the PNP with the real numbers that has come out. And in the past, Commissioner, I remember they used to call it deaths under investigation. And my understanding is they changed that already to homicide under investigation.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
So nagpalit na yon. Ano ho ba ang difference nun para sa CHR? A death under investigation and a homicide under investigation?
Wala naman, parang ano lang yan, labeling, di ba?
Okay. Let's listen to the PNP chief also spoke about the numbers, and let's listen to what PNP chief Oscar Albayalde said.
Hindi naman ito lahat kasi are drug-related, no? Baka pati yung reckless imprudence resulting to homicide ay sinasama naman. Yung mga aksidente sa kalsada. Kaya, baka pati yung inatake sa puso, no? And of course, sabi ko nga, there are also of course incidents of yung mga riding in tandem. Totoo 'yan. No, hindi natin pwedeng ipagkailayan.
The PNP chief basically saying that there are homicide under investigation, but it doesn't necessarily mean these are drug-related cases. What do you say to that?
Well, then they should actually tell us how many are drug-related. After all, sila din naman ang naglabas ng numbers na yon, di ba? So they should be able to distinguish also. And we, of course, have our own investigation, and ang sources namin would be civil society, media, and our own investigation.
What are the numbers you have? What does the CHR have?
I won't say the numbers yet because we're still vetting.
I see.
We're still in the process of vetting all the information.
What are your classifications then? How do you classify drug-related
drug-related deaths?
And then?
Yes. And
you
then,
had-
of course, nanlaban.
Okay.
Okay, or are they pushers or are they drug users and things like that. The different categories.
I see.
But it's all under the ambit of killings that are
The war on
drug-related.
drugs.
The war on drugs.
When do you
yes.
expect to come out with a number?
Well, we're really trying our best, no? And hopefully by the end of the year, we can come up with the numbers. Yeah.
Okay, because this report, I think, is up for submission. The United Nations Human Rights Council.
They have in September, I guess.
I believe they have till June or July of 2020. They have 1 year.
For our report,
Yeah.
for this,
For this report
yes, yes.
to come out. We'll be taking another short break. We'll be right back. You're watching The Source on CNN Philippines. Our guest today, Human Rights Commissioner Gwen Pimentel-Gana. Ma'am, if the United Nations Human Rights Council, or the UN High Commissioner for that matter, asks data from the Commission on Human Rights, will you provide them with data?
Yes, we will. As far as the data that we have,
Yeah.
we will be.
Will you provide them names of the victims, their families, those you are helping in the Commission on Human Rights?
Well, of course, with the permission of the victims' family, we have to ask them if it's okay to reveal their names. But we have that in our records.
And you would be ready to share that if the victims' families are willing to do
Yes.
so. Because you would possibly be one of the agencies, I'm surmising, that they can go to, because marami pong lumalapit din sa inyo, humihingi ng tulong sa Commission on Human
Opo.
Rights. Ilan na ho ba sila sa sa war on drugs ni Pangulo? Ilan na ho ba ang lumapit sa Commission on Human Rights at humingi ng tulong?
Madami na rin ho. At saka, sometimes, inaano din namin ho sila sa witness protection namin. So, I would say about...
Sa sarili ninyong witness protection, you
we
have
our
your own witness
yes,
protection.
for human rights defenders.
Okay.
You know, for when their lives are at stake, yung ganon. So we try to give them sanctuary.
Commissioner, roughly, ilan na hong lumapit sa inyo sa war on drugs?
Sa war on drugs. Masasabi ko sa biktima, yung mga pamilya ng biktima, siguro mga nasa, let's say, 500. Ganon. Pero, sumbong, hindi naman lahat na hawak-hawak namin.
Hindi lahat kaso?
Oh, hindi lahat. Kaso.
You're saying there are 500 different cases that were, or incidents rather, na isinumbong sa inyo?
Yes, because actually, we have the mandate also to do our own motu proprio investigation. So we go and talk to... Actually, I'm talking lang of the families that come to us, pero we have more than 1,000 cases already that we've actually personally investigated on.
So let me repeat that. There are 500 separate individuals na lumapit na po sa tanggapan ng CHR. Kasi
Sa buong Pilipinas.
yes,
na yan,
kasi we're talking about 500 different cases kasi hindi isang pamilya pwedeng
yes,
anin. So 500 na iba't ibang kaso po ang
iba-ibang
lumapit na sa
kaso,
inyo.
ibang
And yet
kaso.
you have investigated 1,000 over...
More than 1,000 cases already. Yes. More than, yes. Pero ayoko.
Yeah,
ayoko
we're not talking
sabihin,
about that. But what has, saan na ho ba nakarating yung pinaka-successful doon sa 1,000 cases na inimbestigahan ninyo? Either inilapit sa inyo o motu proprio?
Well, sorry. Yung sa kay Bertes, at least na dumating na sa korte. Kasi hindi naman kami talaga yung nagdadala sa korte, di ba? We help sometimes in the case build-up, and then we aid the families of the victims of what's the next step for them to do, and then that's it. And then we monitor the case.
All right. So again, cooperation from the CHR as long as pumayag po yung mga victims. And what's next for the CHR now?
What's next?
Kukulitin niyo ho ba ang PNP na bigyan pa kayo ng
oo.
datos?
Oo, kulit ng kulit hanggang talagang makuha namin yung yung kailangan para magawa namin ng mabuti ang aming trabaho.
Maraming salamat kay Human Rights Commissioner Gwen Pimentel-Gana. Commissioner, thank you so much for your
Thank you,
time.
Pinky.
Thank you for joining us here on The Source. I'm Pinky Webb. You're watching CNN Philippines.